Hello kids, it's me again, back with another video. You know, it's been a while since I sat down and made a video like this, and honestly, I gotta say, I kinda miss it. So this video's topic has been a long time coming, but it finally came. I decided that now, for no particular reason, would be a good time to talk about whether I personally think film school was worth it. Now, disclaimer before I get started. This video is not meant to make any kind of determination for anyone else considering whether or not they should go to film school. If you think you should go, then go. If you don't know yet, think about it more. But this video is not, listing pros and cons of going to film school in general. More so, it's talking about my experience with it and whether or not me, being one person, think it was worth it for myself. There are a couple of reasons for this. Like I said, only you can make that determination on whether or not you think film school will be worth it for you and what you want out of your life and your career. And also because my experience will likely be vastly different from number one, yours, and number two, I guess the average film school experience for reasons that we'll get into. With that out of the way, let's just get into it. What better way to start than from the beginning? Firstly and foremostly, why did I decide that I wanted to get into film school in the first place? So this is a story that I love telling because I love talking about myself, in case you didn't know. Originally in school, I majored in creative writing. I did that for a couple years. I'm gonna try to keep this condensed because this isn't the main thesis of the video. I did creative writing for a while. I took this one class called Film Lab where we actually got to make films, which I wasn't expecting going into it. It was just an elective for me, just something fun because I needed the credits because at the time I was doing a fine arts degree and you need a whole lot of credits for that. Eventually I felt like, I really liked it. And by the end of that class, I decided to actually double major in creative writing and film production. So that's what I did. I kind of felt that through film production, I kind of had more of a sense of personal fulfillment. With creative writing, the only thing I really knew was that I wanted to be a writer. Maybe I wanted to be a novelist, but I didn't really have any concrete thing that I was envisioning for myself in creative writing. Whereas in film production, I actually saw a role for myself within this one industry. And I wanted it for myself, and therefore I pursued it. So, that's the short version of that story, basically. So, at first, doing film was great. Like I said, I got the feeling of personal fulfillment from it. I thought, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is gonna be great. But, after a while, for a number of reasons, I kind of started having some doubts. The first major doubt that I kind of had, more so towards the end of my time in college as well as after I graduated, was, am I getting all that I can out of this? So, like I said, I started in the program a little late. Once I first actually started to focus on film curriculum, it was the second semester of my sophomore year. So I started halfway through the year, kind of at an odd time, just in general. So I kind of wonder am I maybe behind a little bit from where I'm supposed to be as a sophomore? That was a feeling that I kind of had. Another one that kind of related to am I getting all that I can out of this is that the film program that I attended was very small. It still remains to be very small. So I went to, actually I'm gonna keep that a secret. You don't need to know what school I went to for the purposes of this. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. If you want to find out, then find out. But I'm gonna leave that out for reasons that I'll get into later. So yeah, the film program that I went into is very small. At the college that I went to, it had only started in 2016, which was 2 years prior to the time that I started being in it. And as a result of that, there weren't a whole lot of people in the film program. There were a lot of people who went to that school who didn't even know we had a film program, myself included at the time. And also as a result of it being really small, we only had one film professor, which ended up being to our detriment. And also the location. Listen, I'm in Mississippi. Mississippi is not exactly a place where lots of films get made. Films do get made here, rarely. The one notable example I can think of that you, the viewer, might know of is The Help, which is made in like 2011, which is already like, what, 11 years ago? So yeah, it's been a while since a major motion picture was made in Mississippi. All that is to say is that major motion pictures don't really get made here, and therefore there's not a whole lot of industry to be found in Mississippi. Like I said, it does exist. It's just not nearly as big as, say, a New York or a Los Angeles or even in Atlanta, you know? So I felt like I was kind of being hindered that way. And also, you know, if you do want to work in like Hollywood, so to speak, a place, you know, a figurative place, but also the literal place where movies get made, you kind of have to live there. And so, you know, being that I do live in America and the place where most major motion pictures are made is in California, and then more specifically Los Angeles, or, you know, even New York, I'm still very far from both of those places. So sometimes I kind of got the impression, especially after I graduated, that maybe me being in the South was kind of a disservice to like my aspirations for the film industry, if that makes sense. So I kind of felt a little hamstrung by my location, especially when it came to looking for jobs after I graduated. And then, you know, of course, during projects and whatnot, I made a video about this. It's called What I Learned Trying to Make a Short Film. And that, I think, went more, well, at the time it didn't, but looking back on it now, it felt like I kind of at the time felt like I wasn't really suited to it, you know, because that whole story really revolved around me trying to direct my own short film. And the conclusion that I came to from that experience and in that video was that I am just not suited to directing. And from that, it kind of made me feel like I also wasn't suited to being in this line of work as a whole, which is not necessarily true, but that is what I felt at the time. And those are the doubts that I had that made me start rethinking my decisions in college when it came to like choosing this major. I think most of my doubts and am I suited to thises and did I go wrongs really came after graduation. From November, which was officially when I like went home, because, you know, during the whole Pond to Replay that we are still in, by the way, some people like to forget it, but we are definitely still in the Pond to Replay. We did not have to come back after Thanksgiving, and therefore that kind of signified the end of my time in college, even though, you know, for a couple of weeks after that, I think I still had some stuff to turn in, or like assignments or whatever, but I consider November to be my end of college, even though technically I graduated in December. So from November up until, let's see here, I want to say July of last year. No, that's 9 months actually, that's longer. Wow, that's even worse. But during those 9 months between after I graduated from school and starting the job that I currently have, it was kind of rough, I'm not gonna lie. So it was a number of factors. I'm not really gonna get too into it, but I will say during that time it was probably the worst I've ever felt, like ever, about anything. So that was fun. I will say, you know, it had its ups and downs during that time. I did a lot of fun stuff with YouTube, which is great that I look back on fondly, but aside from that, that was kind of it. I wasn't just like sitting around moping during that time. I have a thing to show you. So when I was looking for jobs after school, after graduating, I took all the emails from like Indeed and other correspondences and I put them in one folder in Gmail called Job Stuffs. And before I recorded this and wrote the outline for this video, I just went to see how many emails were in there, just for my health, I guess. And 177. I have 177 email correspondences over the 9 months that I was looking for jobs. And I'm gonna estimate that during that time I was, aside from like some of my more off weeks, I was applying for like 5 jobs a week, maybe 1 or 2 a day. You know, I was constantly refreshing Indeed. I was really doing some hunting on LinkedIn, which led me to find quite a few scams and like fake job listings, which wasn't great. And also this one website called entertainmentcareers.net that I used, that I actually got an internship from, which, I mean, listen, I think I'm far removed enough from it to decide that it might have been a scam. Listen, I don't know. It was an unpaid internship, I knew that going in, but considering what I was expecting from it after it ended, what they said they were going to do after it ended. Maybe a scam, I don't know. But that's not important right now. Those 8 months were really rough. I applied to a lot of jobs. I had quite a few interviews, and I'll never forget this. I think I wrote about it in a Medium article that I can't quite remember right now, but I'll flash it on the screen once I inevitably find it. This is an excerpt from my Medium article, Surprise, this Gen Zer does dream of labor. I'm just going to read it out because I kind of ramble in the video and this explains my feeling a lot more. I have to escape this place. There's nothing for me here. The only way to do that is by finding a job elsewhere. Constantly, I ask myself, am I being hamstrung by my location? During one job interview that I can only describe as a tremendous flop, upon hearing that I wanted to work in the film industry, the interviewer asked me, "Have you thought about moving to Atlanta?" I wanted to scream. Of course I thought about it. I think about it all the time. What do you think I'm applying for this job? So that I can save money and move there and accomplish my actual goals. I didn't say that, of course. I simply said that I can't move there unless I find a job there. Because, money. The interviewer said, "Yeah, I get it. Chicken or the egg situation." That whole thing was like super just, I don't know, disheartening for me because my main goal after I graduated was to move to Atlanta and have that be my jumping off point since there was a lot more going on in Atlanta than there is going on in Mississippi as a whole. But I don't know, man. Again, the self-doubts just started coming back because I was looking at places not only in Atlanta but also in Alabama where I'm actually from. Trying to see if I could find places there. And, after submitting a lot of job applications and not hearing back or getting interviews that kind of flop, I started to feel that maybe I don't know, wasn't getting or didn't get all that I could have gotten out of film school because, I have the skills that these employers are looking for, so like why? I think at that point, I was feeling very hamstrung by my location because I was living back home, right? The address that potential employers were seeing was my small middle of nowhere town in Alabama, and I don't know if this is actually the case, but it's something that occurred to me maybe a couple of months in of constantly looking for jobs, is that I think a lot of employers are a lot less likely to hire someone from out of state, especially not even out of state, just like out of town completely, because you can't really count on that person currently having the finances to like move, and of course a lot of companies aren't going to be willing to like compensate people to relocate them, which I don't know what that says about the job market. It probably says something. I don't know what it says. But and then of course there is the whole, being in upon to replay a pandemic. That kind of, joshed up the job market for basically everyone. So I do acknowledge that looking for jobs was hard for literally everybody. But, film and television was still being made during this time. It's just, I guess it's kind of hard to be hired. Listen, I really don't know why it took me so long to find a job. An actual one, not a scam one. I can't really comment on that, but the fact that it did take me so long and that to me it felt like living where I did wasn't doing me any favors in the job hunt. It went back to my doubts. Should I have gone to a bigger film school? Would I even be able to get into a bigger film school? Because the only other school that has like a actual film program, I'm not talking about a community college, that's different, but like a undergraduate. Okay, community colleges are still undergraduate, but I mean like a main 4-year college university. The main one in Mississippi, which is Ole Miss, I did a cursory glance just to see what the requirements were to get in. And you need an actual portfolio before college to get into that program. Now, hey, maybe I would have been able to transfer it. I wouldn't have been able to transfer in. I'm not gonna make any presuppositions about that. That wasn't gonna be able to happen because I went into the film program that I did with like zero knowledge. I didn't know how screenplays were formatted. I didn't know the process of getting something from script to screen. I didn't know any of that, and I learned all of that while I was at school. A lot of film programs, I think, kind of operate with the assumption that the people applying into them have some prior knowledge of just film in general. And thankfully the one that I went to did not require that at all, otherwise I would not have been able to get into it. For that I am thankful, but you know, sometimes I just wonder if things would have worked out a little differently. Would I have been able to achieve the goals that I wanted to if I went to a different place? You know, it's just something that I wonder. Did my film program prepare me for the industry at large? Because at school, we really focused on making short films. We really focused on things that we could actually make in that time. So I'm a writer, right? I started off school with creative writing. I was writing fan fiction in middle school. I am a true writer, okay? We were, you know, encouraged to write scripts, but in our encouragement to write those scripts, we were encouraged to only write things that we could actually make, which is very limited because we only have a very small, very demographically limited, as I stated in my short film video, pool of actors we could choose from, very limited set of locations that we can film on. Usually it'd just be a college campus or like maybe some person that you know who lives off campus, right? Can't shoot anything in an airport, so don't write anything in an airport. Can't shoot anything in big cities, so don't write anything in big city. Basically like that. We're very limited in what we could write. And writing shouldn't feel limiting, you know? I felt like that was not a great aspect of film school, the fact that we were limited to things that we can make. Now, okay, our professor did not limit us from writing those things, it's just we couldn't really submit them. We weren't encouraged, but we also weren't actively discouraged from writing things that were unfeasible for us to make with our very small crew, our very small pool of actors, and our very small limited places that we could film, right? Like, we didn't have the resources to, like, I don't know, we didn't have a sound stage, we can just build sets. Now, there is another film program at a community college here, Hines. They have a film and television program where I think they actually do have a sound stage, but we don't go there, so we can't really use it, can we? For me, writing is making up stuff that you wouldn't really normally, I guess, be able to see. Like, well, I wasn't really into fantasy, but you know, fantastical stuff. Maybe I want to set my movie in a big office in like Midtown Manhattan because I think the setting is interesting. Well, can't really do that here. We're not in Midtown Manhattan and can't go there. We can't fake it. So, and then of course there's just the questions like, did I do myself a disservice by majoring in this? You know, of course, by the time I graduated, it was a little too late to be thinking those things, but there are still things that I thought, right? Like, of course, one of the reasons, not the main reason, but one of the reasons that I finally switched out from creative writing to film production was jobs, right? By the time I had graduated, I had worked like 2 different places. I worked on an actual feature film set and I worked in live television by the time I had graduated. And I don't know what opportunities would really be afforded to me like that, like actual valuable on-the-job experience in creative writing, you know? So the creative writing major to actual working person pipeline was kind of unclear for me, that was one of the reasons why I got out of it. You know, the old boomer in me was just saying, why couldn't you just major in business, economics, STEM, because that's where all the money is. The money is in STEM. But if I did do that, I wouldn't be happy. Even though for the 8 months after I graduated from the thing that made me happy, I was still very unhappy. But I think overall, you know, if I went, I don't know, what's like a normal non-artsy career? Like, I don't know, a teacher? I don't even like kids like that, so no thank you. A plumber? I don't know how to plumb. How do you do that? The normal things that people from small towns tell you will make you a lot of money, like welding. Oh boy, I get to melt 2 pieces of metal together and hopefully not get sunburn on my eyes. And I'm not trying to knock people who do that. You know, they have a lot of money, probably. I still feel fulfilled. You know, currently I feel fulfilled enough. I will say, you know, like I just said, eventually everything kind of worked out for me. So things could be worse. Now, as I am in the workforce and having a job that is actually related to what I went to school for, which not a lot of arts majors people can say I'm in the minority. Well, my actual job is that I am a videographer, which sounds fancier than it is. I mean, to me, videographer doesn't sound that fancy to begin with, but you know, it's not exactly something that I envisioned for myself, because when I was looking for jobs, I was looking for them primarily in post-production, because you know, everybody needs an editor, and also everyone needs someone to shoot a video for them. That's one thing that I learned in school. You're gonna find someone who wants you to shoot a video for them for like whatever reason. So having videography skills is important, essential, etc. But considering I was really dead set on not freelancing or doing like commercial work and like being in the film industry, I was really set on working in post-production. I still wanted to be a writer, but I could do writing on the side. Because like right now I do writing on the side. I mean, nobody's paying me for it, but I'm still writing scripts, which proves that I can do it on the side. So I just finished my second one actually, which is very personally fulfilling for me. I'm not gonna say where I work because I don't want you weirdos trying to look for me, but I am a videographer for an educational nonprofit. As far as, you know, I mean, I am using what I learned in school to do job and make money, so that's great, but it is a little frustrating sometimes because number one, the company is really small. Therefore, I am a one-woman team when it comes to my actual job title. I end up doing a lot of stuff that's not really under the videographer umbrella. Like, yeah, I shoot video, I also take pictures, but I also do a lot of social media management and marketing, which is something, ironically enough, that I stayed far away from in the job search. I did not want to work in marketing, and I especially didn't want to work in social media management. Those are things I had no skills in. But now I have skills in them now. And me being terminally online actually works because I know how to do social media, which is great. It actually worked out for me, wow. That's what I do now. And sometimes, I can't even lie and say like rarely. Honestly, it kind of happens a lot, but sometimes I'll get this little sneaking feeling crawling up my spine, being like, wow, is this really all I can do? Like, I should be out there making films and entertaining the populace, but I'm in here queuing up Twitter posts. So sometimes, you know, sometimes I do feel like that. And of course, this is just like an intrusive thought that I have. This is not how I feel about my actual job. I enjoy my job very much. In reality, it's very easy, and I get paid to do something that's easy, which is always great. I think to me, it just felt like I spent so much time and energy trying to focus on doing one specific thing, which is work in the film industry, and when I do something that's only kind of tangentially related to that, I feel a little bad because it feels like all of my schooling was for nothing, which it wasn't. Again, this is just a sneaky feeling that I have sometimes. Just a feeling of self-doubt that I have sometimes. So, and then of course I have general impatience about it all, and sometimes I just have to stop, take a breath, and remind myself that, hey, the film industry was here way before I was born. It will be here way after I die. I just gotta be patient. I'm gonna get there eventually. It's not gonna be right away. I just gotta have to wait. You know, have to wait, build up that portfolio, get me a good few scripts that I think are really worth marketing and putting out there, enjoy that steady paycheck and regular normal people hours for as long as I can. Because, oh my goodness, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you work in the film industry, your hours are bananas insane. Oh my lord. The times that I was, let's say, working on a film set, I think we regularly did 12-hour days. So we had, I think it was 5 days on, 2 days off. And those 2 days were not guaranteed to be like a Saturday and a Sunday. They're kind of odd. They're like in the middle of the week. But we were getting to set before the sun came up and leaving set after the sun came down. And the same was for my live TV gig that I did, which was the golf tournament that's held here. We got there before the sun came up and we left before the sun came down, and I was only driving a golf cart and carrying a tripod. If I had to be a sound recorder, I would probably die because they have to walk up and down those golf courses all day in the hot, in the sun. Couldn't be me. Could not be me. It was always a lot of fun. Can't doubt that, but The film that I worked on didn't pay me at all, and the golf tournament paid me enough. Once I actually get in that industry that I yearn for, I'm gonna be missing those good night's rests that I got while working this job I currently have. So I guess I suppose I should just count my blessings or whatever. That's kind of the reality of things. It's like now, my job, pretty cushy. I have free time, I have normal hours, I have a regular paycheck, and like I have a normal job. Film industry jobs, not normal. I honestly can't think of another job like that where you're, you know, having weird, wacky hours and sometimes you're not getting paid. Like where else can you do that? Let me know in the comments. What other jobs are there where you can work weird hours and sometimes not get paid? Let me know, because I'm curious. So one thing that, okay, I have this outline here, but I've been kind of bouncing around it. And one thing that I kind of haven't got into when it comes to whether or not my whole film school experience is worth it is my film professor. And I can't super duper get into it for a number of reasons that you will not be able to know, because then I'll just give everything away. It's kind of a complicated issue, and again, I can't really get into it, but I'll say this. Some people are suited to being teachers, and some people aren't. It's kind of like being a director. You kind of have to have the personality for it, and some people don't. And my film professor did not, and that kind of did all of us a disservice. And it was also the fact that we only had one, so this person was constantly spread thin throughout the entire department, because they were the head of it and they were also all of our teacher. They taught all of the classes, and so this person also kind of only had expertise in like a few areas. I mean, I will say, listen, I felt like I got a well-rounded education on all the aspects of filmmaking, but I don't know if it was as thorough as it could have been, just simply because of the fact that we only had one professor. At some points it really seemed like they were not having a good time being our singular professor, and I think in my last year there were some rumblings about hiring on another professor, even just like an adjunct position. But as far as I know, even up until right now, and it's been over a year since I've graduated, they have not hired anyone else yet. So yeah, again, I really can't get into it because there are other people who I would be, not disrespecting, that's not the word, but there are other people who I'd be, I guess, letting down by spilling the beans too early and without everyone's unanimous, I guess, consent. But that one film professor really made the whole experience extremely difficult. If I were not dead set on completing my goals, and if I were not driven out of spite, I probably would have dropped film at some point. But being that I am a really stubborn person and also very spiteful, I'm not gonna let one person dissuade me from doing something, because if I really wanna do it, I'm gonna do it. And if you tell me I can't do it, then I'm just gonna wanna do it more. So there's really no point to doing that. Again, super vague, but, and I do really want to talk about it at some point, but again, it's not just me who's involved here, there's other people. So, and I know it's super vague, and that's kind of why I can't say where I went to school. And again, if you know, you know, if you don't, you don't, and if you don't worry about it. Oh, well, like I was saying, the reality of things, even though I sometimes have very brief, limited dissatisfactions about my job, in reality, I am actually pretty good at my job, if I do say so myself. Especially for a one-woman team, you know, as a videographer, you kind of have to do everything. And I feel like I can do everything pretty well. You know, it's not only just recording the video, but of course I have to make sure everything is in focus and everything is framed correctly. I have to make sure everything is lit correctly. I have to make sure the sound recording equipment, number one, works, and number two, sounds good. I have to, of course, edit everything, you know, all aspects. I have to do that, and I am good at it, okay? Even though I do have self-doubts, you know, especially while I was in school and even after I got out of school, and honestly, it lasts till this day, because anytime we have a shoot at my job, I get super anxious because there's just this voice in the back of my head, which coincidentally has the voice of my film professor, that's telling me, you know, making me doubt myself, essentially. So in reality, things end up working out. I may or may not be better off going to another film program, but like I said, the other ones are super competitive, and I probably would not just be able to walk into one like I walked into the one that I ended up doing. And I mean, listen, there is a lot of talk. I don't know if you could just call it talk, but there's a lot of discussion within academia if one degree from one school is worth more than another degree in another school. But the fact of the matter is, I truly believe that I learned the same things that someone going to like NYU Film School or some other, the American Film Institute, I learned the same things that they did. And also, this isn't even getting into whether or not film school is necessary to get into the film industry. I'm not really talking about that at all. I truly believe that I learned the same things that someone going to a prestigious film school would have learned, right? I know how to use a camera. I know how to light things. I know the different types of lights and things like that. I know how to edit stuff. I mean, I've never used an Avid before, but I could learn. It can't be that hard. My film education was just as good as someone else's film education who went to a big school. And I have to keep reminding myself that because I don't want to get emotional, but again, it's just a lot of factors. I'm in Mississippi. I went to a school where we only had one professor and one of my classes was literally 3 students. I didn't get to work on a lot of stuff, but I still have to keep reminding myself that my film education was just as good as somebody else's. It just didn't come from a big name school. And yeah, there's not really a pipeline from my school to like a film studio, and maybe that will make things a little bit different or difficult for me trying to actually get into the film industry, but I still think I have the skills to do that. I just have to carve my way there, you know? And this isn't even getting into the fact that I'm a black woman. Like, the deck is already infinitely stacked against me for like a number of reasons, just being born this way, but you know, in the film industry, it feels especially hard, you know? A lot of the times I was like the only, not just the only black person, but the only black girl in class on set, so I feel like I can deal with it now. Doesn't really bother me all that much. I mean, it does bother me, the fact that it is that way, but I feel like I can deal with it once that comes. Like, the 2 like legit jobs that I've had, the feature-length movie that I worked on, the only black person, literally the only black person on set. It was kind of wild, but again, I'm used to it. It shouldn't be that way, but it was that way, and you know, I guess I'm kind of a trendsetter. By doing that, I don't know. The golf tournament, I was not the only black person, stepping up a little bit, but I was the only female camera assistant, which is wild. There are just certain things that I have to remind myself of. I am incredibly fortunate to be where I am, but it feels like sometimes I can't help but compare myself to the people that I graduated with, which I mean, for the most part, I'll say the people who have graduated from that program have gone on to do pretty good things, right? Maybe they aren't part of, you know, big Hollywood movies or whatever, but they're still, I feel like they've still found success in whatever way that might be. You know, if it is just working for like a company or being a videographer for a nonprofit or not being employed and just making short films in your own time, I still feel like that's success. However, I feel like we succeeded despite what our film program provided us, and not really because of it, and that's not great. You know, that's just not great. The big question, we have finally made it to the end. Was film school worth it? And I will say yes, it was. So far, nobody has asked me this question, but if anyone were to ask me this question, you know, how was your time in college? I will say it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times, because that's really how it was, you know. It had its ups and downs, and that's really the only way that I can describe it. Again, I can't make the determination on whether or not you should go into film at the collegiate level. You have to do that for yourself. I can't make that decision for you. I'm not your mama, okay? In general, I would say yes, go for it if you have the means to do so, and if it's something you really want to do. Just maybe don't go to the one at my college, not until they have improved the program, and that's really all I can say. And that's so unfortunate, because in the months that have passed that I have graduated, I find myself caring a strange amount about the program. I want it to succeed. I want it to get bigger. I want the students to learn everything they can about film and succeed. It's just that with the professor that we have now, it's not likely to happen. And that's unfortunate. So yes, film school was worth it for me. But sometimes I personally wonder if things would have been different if I had gone to another bigger film school. But again, I just have to remind myself, I got the same education where I went to school. If I had gone to like NYU or AFI or whatever, it's just that there it would have been way more competitive and I probably would have had even more self-doubts. I learned a lot and I like that. I learned a lot, but sometimes I just wish some things that happened a little differently. And that's kind of all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video isn't too disjointed. Outro time. Gosh, I haven't made a video in so long. I legit almost forgot, but whatever. Follow me on Twitter. Donate. No more Ko-fi. Actually, I'm making the announcement. I'm not gonna be promoting my Ko-fi that much anymore, nor am I gonna be monetizing this video because I kind of don't need to anymore, and also paying taxes this year kind of got me. I am not gonna be really actively monetizing stuff from now on. Follow me on Twitter, read my Medium articles, and also listen to my podcast with my film school bestie, Joseph. I do still want to get him on the channel again for like another proper video. We've been talking about this for weeks, honestly, but we just haven't really gotten around to doing it. So hopefully that will be soon, sooner rather than later. Yeah, that's all I got for today, and I'm gonna go further my career.